Welcome to BofC Live, the daily video and podcast series of Business of Cannabis. BofC Live highlights the companies, brands, people, and trends driving the global cannabis sector. Learn more at businessofcannabis.ca. Our guest today is David Kerr of Gallagher. Gallagher is our official insurance provider of Business of Cannabis. He joined us to talk about cannabis insurance, especially as it relates to cannabis retailers. David Kerr from Gallagher, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jay. Great to see you again.
Great to see you. Happy 2021. This is going to be the year where we come out of this basement fog, I think. I don't know.
Maybe we will get to do one of these in person in the near future.
Let's just take out the word near and just use the word future, and I think we'll get there. How's that? That one I'm sure. At some point down the line, we will do this in person. That will be great.
I hope I have a fresh haircut by then and not be, it's getting quite long.
I'm boycotting, obviously. Until we can do this in person, you won't see this thing cut. You, of course, Gallagher is our official insurance provider of Business of Cannabis. We love the partnership because then we get to ask you all kinds of insurance questions, which are on our minds, but also the industry minds. And I think it's something when people start up their cannabis business, they don't realize it's going to be maybe as challenging as it is. And one area in particular I want to talk to you about today, which is sort of this growth mode of retail, not only in Ontario, which is going to see a huge number of new retailers, but around the country. Have a lot of people who are in business for themselves for the first time, are in a heavily regulated industry for the first time, and are going through this process. And they thought it would be a 6-month timeline to get open. Now it's a 3-month process. I can only assume you are fielding lots of questions from would-be cannabis retailers about what they need to do relative to insurance. When you get that panicked call, what say you?
Yeah, it seems to be quite prevalent right now, but our team is ready and kind of eager to help. It's been this way it feels like for us a long time, but it's only been a few months of this kind of charge in retail. We kind of have a strategy. We know there's an application that's required. We've developed a guide that goes along with the application to try and make it as easy as possible, because there's enough heavy lifting going on with starting the retail store, and they don't need to go through, a 12-page application and be overwhelmed. So we'll cut out the sections you need to complete. We'll also tell you the limits that you need, and for certain instances, it's okay, what stock limit do I need? I don't know. I don't know how much I'm going to have. I'll tell you kind of the average we're seeing on a provincial basis. That can provide some guidance. We'll tell you the crime limits that are on a basis. We'll make sure that if you're doing any tenants improvements to the actual store, that you're insuring them. So if the store, caught fire or something like that, you can be reimbursed on that end. And then there's also the equipment component that's got to go into it. The major price drivers, the products liability, that's what the governments are all going to need. And you don't need to have that until you get your authorization. So once that RSA comes in, if it's in Ontario or vice versa in other provinces, we can then change your policy to accommodate that coverage. But until then, you can have some savings by just having the basic coverage that's enough for when you're doing contractual work within the store and getting ready to operate. There's also some great partners that we can recommend. Merco Payments is one, Ventrina Group is another, obviously partners of the BofC, but they are super helpful. Every client we refer to them has been just overwhelmed with how great they are.
Yeah.
And then, we're also starting to see on a basis of a lot of locations can have 30 stores. Like one company can have 30 stores in Ontario while also having many in other provinces. We can manage that on a basis for you, and we'll have our own kind of Excel spreadsheet. We can plug into your real estate team. So when you're adding stores or subtracting stores, we're making sure the coverage is extended for each one and making sure it's the proper coverage. And we'll kind of come on it. There'll be the more stores you're buying, the better the rate you're going to get from the insurer. We'll work on your behalf for that. And there's a few other methods. If you have, if you're looking at 10 plus stores, you shouldn't probably be buying the product liability limit per store, because there's no claims data that's suggesting that you're having that many. You can satisfy the government requirement by buying a blanket limit, and that's going to encompass all your needs. And you can look at higher aggregates so that it's if you have a 5 million limit that satisfies it, you buy a 10 or 15 million aggregate in case you had multiple claims. But we're trying to do a few different things right now. And I think it's like you've been learning in the process of the last 2.5 years, things are in hyperdrive now. So, I mean, feel free to reach out at any point. The earlier, the better. We can turn it around quickly, though. We've been known to do that. So we're happy to help in any way.
Well, it's interesting, sort of laying out your experience to date and how you're dealing with retailers now. Underpins a thesis that I think we talked about with Krista from Vitrina Group within the past week for sure. And that is, there are people who've done this before, right? And done it a lot and understand the cannabis retail landscape and how to get you up and running by working together with other people who've done it before. But also many of those things you just mentioned, you could only learn having done this a number of times, right? And understand the regulatory requirements, the business requirements, the timing requirements, and also just really how the insurance is actually put into place for these retailers. It's not written in a guide, aside from the guide that you've put together, but like it's basically you figured it out through trial and error over 2 years. And that is a tremendous amount of value to bring to a retailer.
Yeah, and it becomes almost like a muscle memory, right? Like it's how can we, right when you give us a call, how can we like build into your business, plug in and start helping you right away and get that process going? It might even be something where, hey, we give you the insurance and, oh, you know what, you don't need it for another month. At least you know the budget and you know where the cost is going to go. And we're always happy to share, like, if you estimate X amount of revenue and this amount of stock, you're going to have this a year, we can give you a rough price early on. And then at least you have that for your budget and then to move forward as you go down this process. Cause there's a lot of red tape obviously to it.
Well, there is, and I just I have a vision in my mind of a would-be retailer that has the weight of the world literally on their shoulders, right? They're trying to get a store up and running. They're working the regulatory process. There's lots of technology they're trying to roll out, hiring and training staff, also trying to bank money so they could actually place their first order, then Terra Cannabis stores, they go to the doors, all that. And if there's things to lift some of that weight off their shoulders, it changes the dynamic considerably. I think
they're also doing that in a pandemic.
right. So sorry, I didn't. That was just a given. That's the baseline. But all of that is to say, like taking these big chunks off of their shoulders is how I sort of view the work you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let us help us chip away at that, and just be there. We're here to help you and be a reliable source in making sure that you're getting the best coverage and insurance pricing that you need, and any questions you have, like that's what we're here to help. And the phones are ringing quite a bit, but we have a great team, Gallagher, and we're all prepared to help, and we're across the country. So
yeah, well, I shared with you a story before we came on about a risk behavior, not one of your clients, but that they were doing in terms of how they're managing the cash that comes in the store. And I just can't emphasize it enough that talk to David, better call David, because I think there's things even in the day-to-day operations and how you're running your store that really, you've seen a lot of it, so you understand, but also how do you mitigate those risks so you stay in line with exactly how you should be operating.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like there's a lot of risk management, I'll call it risk management avoidance that goes on. So like how can we help with certain things that might even just seem like a silly question, but it doesn't hurt to ask. The other component is you're also negotiating leases a lot of the time. We can review that and make sure that there's clauses that aren't detrimental to your business, because a lot of times landlords will try and push everything onto the retailer, especially if they know it's a cannabis retailer. They'll tell them that they have to take care of all their premiums if they go up. There's a lot of things you can look at, and we'll give you some recommendations. Obviously, you need to run that by legal counsel, but just things that are just like normal for the insurance clause of those contracts. Those are key.
and let me zoom out a little bit, because we're talking specifically about insurance for retailers who are trying to open up their doors. In Ontario, there's like going to be another 1,000 between now and the end of December. Some percentage of them, probably 20 to 30 to maybe 50, will be, I don't know if in my neighborhood, but certainly between where you live and I live in downtown Toronto.
I'm a block from Bayview, and there's 4 stores within the 2 blocks right there.
It's like they get you.
Yeah, they know.
But I want to zoom out a little bit, because obviously we're talking about retail. insurance, but also, and we'll announce it within the coming week. Like you and I and you and the team at Gallagher are going to be working on an event that we're going to do a little bit later in the spring about insurance for other parts of the sector as well. And there are some that sort of overlay a whole, directors and officers insurance, errors and omissions, that type of thing. But we're going to be talking specifically about crops and outdoor crops in particular. And I'm looking forward to that. And those that are following and listening and watching, you'll get updates about sort of what that looks like as well. But that's coming down the pike too, because your purview is obviously bigger than retail. Even though a lot of the excitement is on retail, there's a lot of questions that folks have around insurance on all parts of the sector.
Yeah, and there's a lot of exciting things going on. I think there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about with crop, with regards to the other property insurance, and on the directors and officers liability. That's always a hot button issue. It's the most expensive coverage to this industry, and things are changing in the States. And if they keep progressing that way and there's legislation passed soon, things are going to open up, and it's going to be a very exciting time. And hopefully prices can come down.
Yeah, I mean, that's great from an insurance, like prices coming down for sure, but also just from industry, big picture, there's lots of things happening, which is exciting. And David, hopefully along the way, we know we'll be connecting with you. We'll also see you later in the spring at the event we talked about. And as we always do, call David if you have an insurance question. I say that not both because you are a partner, but even before you're a partner, we were saying that. So thank you for being with us here today. We look forward to connecting with you down the road, and thanks for all your insight.
Thanks, Jay. We're super excited to connect for the year.
Our work is made possible with the ongoing support of our official partners, including Cannabis at Work, Cannabis Benchmarks, Can Delta, Gallagher, and Torque & Mains.